The exile beneath twin sons of Navaar burned low on the horizon, casting a golden-red glow across the jagged rocks and silent dunes. The air shimmered with heat, but it wasn't the heat that made Layna's throat tighten. It was the silence. Not the quiet of nature, but the kind that follows judgment. Exile.layna stood still, arms wrapped around her son, who clung to her leg. Her eyes, once fierce and proud, now brimmed with tears that refused to fall. Her people, the Varaki, stood behind the temple gates, watching, judging. No one stepped forward. Not even her own sister. Not even the elders she once served. You helped a human, the high priest had said. You chose their blood over your own, she had tried to explain. She had told them the human was wounded, lost, unarmed. She had given him water, covered his wounds, and sent him back across the border. She had not betrayed anyone. She had only shown mercy, but mercy was weakness to the Varaki. And weakness was unforgivable. She looked down at her son, Anu. His tiny face was half hidden in her robes, but his eyes were open wide, silently searching. Her face for answers she didn't have. He was only 6 cycles old. Too young to carry the weight of exile. Too young to understand why his home had turned its back on him. A harsh gust of wind blew from the desert, stinging her face with sand. The temple gates groaned as they shut behind her, sealing her fate. The mark on her shoulder glowed faintly, an exile sigil. It would burn for 7 years, warning any who saw it that she was cast out, untouchable, unworthy. We keep moving, she whispered, her voice trembling. They walked for hours beneath the twin suns. The desert stretched endlessly, broken only by distant cliffs and the skeletal remains of ancient creatures that once ruled this world. The bones rose like silent monuments to things forgotten, things stronger than the Varaki, yet still fallen. Each step left a trail of memories behind them, fading in the shifting sands. By nightfall, they found shelter in a half-buried wreck. It was the husk of an old starcraft, human-built, its metal hull rusted and scorched. The symbols on its side were worn, but she recognized the old human letters. She couldn't read them, but she remembered them from stories. Inside, the air was stale but cooler. Inu curled beside her, shivering. She held him close, listening to the wind scream through the cracks. She felt hopelessness pressed down on her, chest like a stone. But in the silence, something stirred. A voice, faint, human. She froze. A shadow moved at the back of the wreck, tall, broad-shouldered, not Varaki. Layna tensed, shielding Enu with her arm. You're not safe out here, the voice said gently. It was a man, human. He stepped into the light. His face was worn but kind, his dark eyes calm. A rifle hung across his back, but his hands were open, palms up. Name's Jalen, he said. You look like you could use help. She stared at him, unable to speak. It had been years since she had seen a human up close. The last one had been the one she saved. Was it him? No, this one was older. And different. We're exiles, she finally said. You shouldn't be near us. Jalen shrugged. Good thing I don't listen too well. His voice carried no judgment, only warmth. It startled her. He knelt beside Inu, offering a sealed water capsule. You hungry, little one? Enu looked up with wide eyes but didn't answer. Layna pulled Enu back gently. Why are you here? Salvaging tech, he said. But that's not important. What is important is that this place, it's not safe at night. The desert isn't empty. It only looks that way, she frowned. What do you mean? He looked out through the hull's broken edge. There are things that come out after dark. They smell fear and pain. As if to echo his words, a low rumble echoed from beyond the dunes. A sound like something breathing, not an animal. Not when .lay in a single quote's skin went cold. Even Anu sat up straight, clutching her arm. What is that? She whispered. Nothing good, Jalen said. But don't worry. I've dealt with worse. He tapped the wall of the wreck. It shimmered briefly, revealing a thin energy field. Camouflage tech, human tech. You'll be safe in here tonight. But tomorrow, we move. You can't survive out here alone. She stared at him, heart pounding. Why would you help us? You don't even know us. Jalen's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped lower, softer. Because someone once helped me. Someone who wasn't supposed to. Someone who broke their laws to save a stranger. And I never forgot. Layna's breath caught in her throat. He stood, adjusting his gear. Rest. We leave at first light. He turned away, but before stepping deeper into the shadows, he looked back. There's more to you than they see, he said. And more to your son than even you know. He disappeared down a corridor, leaving silence behind. Layna sat frozen, the words ringing in her mind. She looked down at Anu. He had fallen asleep again, his small fingers still gripping hers. A strange feeling rose in her chest. Not fear. Not despair. Hope. But beneath that hope, something else stirred. Confusion. Unease. Wonder. What did he mean more to your son than even you know? Outside, the wind howled again. But inside the wreck, Layna listened to the faint hum of human shielding. And for the first time since exile, she closed her eyes without trembling. Whispers in the sand. The suns had barely risen when Jalen tapped the hull and deactivated the shield. Outside, the desert was quiet, but not peaceful. A strange stillness lingered, like something had passed through in the night and left its breath behind. Layna stepped out slowly, holding Anu's hand. The sand was cool beneath her bare feet, but warming fast. Jalen was already outside, scanning the horizon with a strange device that blinked with soft blue lights. What was that sound last night? Layna asked. He didn't look at her. Night maw. They travel through sand. Fast. Hard to see. But they stay away from old human tech. Something in the frequency repels them. Why would they come this close to the border? They go where the wounded go, he said, glancing at her shoulder. They follow pain. Layna pulled her robe tighter. The exile mark on her shoulder throbbed faintly, reacting to something. Unseen. You tugged her arm. Mama, I had a dream. She knelt beside him, brushing sand from his face. What kind of dream, little one? His eyes, still half sleepy, looked distant. A voice told me we're not alone. That we have light. Inside us. Layna's heart skipped. She tried to smile, but her hands trembled. It was just a dream, Anu. Jalen was watching them now. Not with suspicion, but with something like curiosity. And a hint of recognition. We should keep moving, he said. We need to reach the ridge before the heat wave hits. They walked in silence for hours. Jalen led with confidence, his boots leaving deep tracks behind him. Layna followed close, keeping Anu between them. The boy was quiet, watching the sand as if waiting for it to move again. By midday, they reached a cliffside. Jagged rocks jutted from the earth, forming a narrow passage that led downward. At the edge of the ridge, Layna stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Beneath them was a vast canyon. Dead machines stretched across it like bones in a graveyard. Old warships. Fallen drones. Broken walkers half buried in sand. Relics of a war long forgotten. This is a grave field, Layna whispered. Jalen nodded. This was where the humans made their last stand. Decades ago. Against who? Everyone. His voice was calm, but heavy. He looked down at the wreckage like someone who remembered every story the silence tried to bury. They sent 100 species to break Earth, he said. But they didn't expect what they found. Humans didn't fight like the others. They didn't fight to win. They fought because they had nothing left to lose. And when someone's lost everything, he knelt, running his hand through the sand. ... They become something you can't predict. Layna said nothing. She remembered hearing stories as a child. Humans were strange, wild things. Some said they were broken. Others said they were dangerous. But one thing was always the same: humans were survivors. They reached the floor of the canyon and picked their way through the wrecks. Jalen moved like he'd been here before. He touched the metal husks gently, as if honoring the dead. Anu walked beside one giant walker and reached out to touch its leg. When his fingers brushed the metal, the walker gave a faint hum. Just for a moment. Jalen froze. Layna pulled Inu back. "Don't touch anything," she said, her voice sharp. But Jalen stepped forward, eyes wide. "How did he do that?" he asked. I don't know." Jalen stared at the walker, then at Anu. "That machine's been dead for 40 years. No power, no circuits, nothing." Layna looked down at Anu. His eyes were wide, but calm. "I just wanted to help it," he said softly. Jalen stood up straight, his hand gripping the edge of his belt. His face had changed. He wasn't calm anymore. He was alert, concerned, maybe even afraid. "We need to get underground," he said. "Now." "What is this place really?" Layna asked. "You said it was a battlefield, but you didn't tell us everything." Jalen glanced at her. "Because I didn't know if you'd believe me." "Try me." He took a deep breath. "This canyon, it's not just a battlefield, it's a vault. There are things buried here that aren't supposed to wake up. Old tech. Things humans made when we were desperate. Things even we were afraid of. And your son just touched one, and it responded." Layna's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" Jalen looked at Inu. "It means your son isn't just sensitive. He might be a synchron." She blinked. "That's a myth." "Not anymore." Before she could ask more, a sound echoed through the canyon, low and metallic, like something deep below had just stirred. The ground beneath their feet vibrated faintly. Dust trickled from the wrecks above. Jalen turned, voice urgent. "Run!" They darted toward a collapsed tunnel at the canyon's edge. Jalen hit a hidden switch, and part of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow shaft leading down into darkness. Layna hesitated. What if it's worse down there? Jalen looked at her with a fire in his eyes. "What's coming is worse than anything you'll find underground." She grabbed Anu and followed him in. The door sealed behind them just as the wind above howled with a strange metallic scream, long and angry. In the dark, Layna clutched Inu close. The air was cooler here, quieter, but her heart pounded with fear. "What's a synchron?" she whispered. Jalen lit a small beacon, casting a soft glow over the walls. "It's someone who can connect with old human tech. Not with commands, not with code, but with will." He looked at Anu. There were only a few in history, born in times of need. Never trained, never expected. And what happens to them? Layna asked. Jalen, single quotes as voice turned grim. "They change everything." The forgotten room deep beneath the desert floor, the silence was heavy. The walls of the tunnel dripped with aged metal, cracked from heat and time, covered in layers of sand turned to glass. Every sound they made echoed far beyond their footsteps. Layna walked close behind Jalen, her arm wrapped tightly around Anu. The boy's small hand stayed in hers, but his eyes were no longer filled with fear. They were focused, too focused for a child his age. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. Jalen didn't stop walking. "There's a safe room further in. It's from the old days, before the last war. Built by humans when they knew the end was coming. It was meant for the synchron's, but they never got the chance to use it. Layna glanced at Inu. He's just a child. That's exactly when they appear, Jalen said. Always during war. Always when hope's almost gone. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber. Old lights flickered weakly along the ceiling. Broken screens lined the walls, their glass long shattered. In the center of the room was a round platform, covered in dust, surrounded by 6 metal pillars etched with strange symbols. Jalen wiped the dust from one of them. This is it. The synchron gate. What does it do? Layna asked. He looked at her, his face grave. It answers. Before she could speak again, Inu let go of her hand. He walked slowly toward the platform, like something invisible was calling him. Inu, she said quickly, reaching out. Stop, he paused and turned. Mama, it wants to show me something. Layna rushed forward and grabbed him, pulling him back. Her voice cracked. You don't know what that thing is. But Jalen raised a hand. Let him decide. Layna spun toward him. He's a child. Yes, Jalen said gently. But maybe he's more than that. She looked at Anu. His small chest rose and fell with quiet breaths, but his eyes held something ancient, something that didn't belong to a 6-year-old. She let go. Enu stepped onto the platform. Nothing happened at first. The lights flickered. Dust shifted. Then one of the pillars hummed. Then another. Soon all 6 began to glow faintly. The air thickened, heavy with electricity and something else, something alive. A soft blue field rose around the platform, surrounding. Anu and light. Layna's breath caught. Anu? His eyes were closed now, face calm. Suddenly the screens around the chamber blinked on. They flickered, fuzzed with static, then showed images: wars, ships, human cities. Crumbling, rebuilding, falling again. And then a symbol. A spiral wrapped in fire. Jalen stepped forward. It's responding. It's showing him the past and the choice that was made. What choice? The one to bury all this. To hide the old power so no one could use it again. The synchrons were the key, but they were too rare, too powerful. The last human council sealed this place, made sure it would never be found. Layna's voice was shaking, but he found it. Jalen nodded slowly. No, it found him. The light around Enu pulsed once, then stopped. He opened his eyes. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then Inu spoke, his voice strange, distant. They're coming. Layna knelt beside him, heart racing. Who? What do you mean? He looked at her, his small hand touching her cheek. The ones who hunt the synchrons. They felt the gate. They're waking. From where? He pointed upward, toward the surface. The sands are not empty. Suddenly, Jalen cursed under his breath. He tapped a panel on the wall. Nothing happened. Backup power's down. They'll be on us before we can reroute to the next vault. Layna looked between them, fear tightening her chest. How many? Jalen turned to her. If they sent one, we could run. Maybe even fight. And if it's more? He met her eyes. We won't survive. Inu stood still now, arms at his sides. Then he looked at the dark wall and raised his hand. The room responded. A deep pulse echoed through the metal. One by one, the dead lights flickered back on, brighter, stronger. The wall shifted and a hidden door slid open at the far end. Layna stared in disbelief. How? Jalen's voice was quiet. He activated the deep command. What is that? It's a code buried in human systems, not a password, not a key. Just one thought, one purpose. The open door led to another passage, but this one was lit with glowing veins of blue energy. The walls were newer, cleaner. Untouched by war. Layna followed Jalen through, holding Enu close again. You said something hunts the synchros, she said. What are they? Jalen took a moment before answering. They're not people. They're not even fully alive. They were made by a species called the Shar engineered to find and erase anything that could threaten control. The synchros were their greatest fear. Layna's hands trembled. And now my son is one, Jalen stopped. He looked back at her. Double quotes, no. Your son is the first one to awaken in nearly 80 years. That makes him more than a target. It makes him a spark. A spark for what? Something they thought was dead, Jalen said. They reached the end of the corridor. Another room opened before them, this one filled with sleeping machines. Not broken, not forgotten. Just waiting. This is a carrier bay, Jalen said. Old Earth tech, but it still listens. He walked toward a panel and pressed a code. One of the machines, a transport shaped like a bird of prey, lit up. We'll take that to the edge of the wastes. There's a human outpost still active. They've been searching for the synchron line for decades. You knew all this time. Layna whispered. I hoped, Jalen said, but I didn't believe. Not until now. They climbed into the transport. Inu sat between them, quiet again. As the engines hummed and the old machine lifted from the floor, Layna held her son close. She thought of her people. They had banished her for saving a human. And now that same human was saving her again. But somewhere above them, in the vast sands of Navaar, something ancient had awakened. And it was coming. The storm above and below the old human craft shot through the tunnel, guided by blue light veins running like rivers through the stone. The humming of the engine was smooth but deep, like the echo of a long-forgotten heartbeat. Layna sat holding Inu close, her mind torn between awe and dread. She watched her son's face, calm, still, eyes wide but not afraid. The weight of what Jalen had said still echoed in her chest. Synchron, spark, hunted. You wasn't just a boy anymore. Not to the world. Not to the shadows coming for him. Jalen sat in the pilot's seat, his fingers tapping ancient controls as if they were second nature. Light from the console glowed across his face, revealing lines of exhaustion of someone who had been running from something for a long time. How long until we reach the surface? Layna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 10 minutes. Jalen replied without looking back. But once we get up there, we'll have company. The hunters? He nodded. They're fast? They smell the old tech. They move through the sand like ghosts. And now that the gate's been activated, they'll come in force. Layna's hand tightened around Inu's. How do we fight them? We don't, Jalen said. We escape. Outside. The window, the tunnel opened wider. Shattered machines lined the walls like forgotten memories. Human walkers with half-torn limbs. Drones that looked like metal birds frozen mid-flight. All dead. All watching. Suddenly, Inu sat up straighter. His voice was calm, but it cut through the cabin like thunder. They're above us. Waiting. Layna's heart froze. How do you know? I hear them, he whispered, in the ground, in the dark. They're angry. Jalen looked back. Eyes wide. He's sinking again. I've seen this before, but never this strong. What does it mean? It means he's not just reacting anymore, Jalen said. He's reaching out. Before Layna could speak again, the transport shook violently. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed. They're attacking the tunnel, Jalen shouted, trying to collapse it. A huge crash echoed from behind, and the rearview screen showed. A blast of sand and metal roaring toward them. Hold on. The craft tilted sharply, engines roaring. Layna gripped Inu as the ship surged forward, the tunnel behind them collapsing in waves. Fire and dust chased them like a beast. Just ahead. Light. Jalen slammed the switch. A hidden hatch above burst open, and the transport shot upward, breaking through the surface of the desert. They rose into a sky bruised with storm clouds. Twin suns, now hidden behind a strange red haze. Wind screamed across the dunes. We made it, Jalen breathed. But the relief didn't last. Layna looked through the window and saw them dark figures rising from the sand. Not men. Not creatures. Something. In between. Tall, thin, cloaked in dust and shadows. No eyes. No mouths. Only smooth metal masks that shimmered like glass. The hunters. They're not chasing us, she said, confused. They're watching. They're waiting for a signal, Jalen said. They won't risk open battle. Not yet. Enu stared at the hunters. They're afraid. Layna blinked. They don't look afraid. Not of us, Enu said. Of what's waking? Jalen's hands tightened on the controls. He's right. Ahead, the desert cracked open. A ridge of land split apart, revealing a black shape rising. Slowly from below. It wasn't alive, but it wasn't dead either. A monolith. Smooth, towering, covered in ancient symbols that glowed faintly blue. It hummed with energy older than war. What is that? Layna whispered. A memory vault, Jalen said. There. We're 3 on this world. 2 are lost. This one was dormant. Until now. The transport hovered above the monolith. Enu stood slowly and walked toward the front of the cabin, eyes locked on the rising vault. It's calling me, he said. We're not landing, Jalen said quickly. Not here. It's too exposed. Enu turned to him, voice quiet but full of power. We have to. There's something inside. Something meant for me. Layna looked at Jalen, torn between fear and trust. What if he's right? And what if it's a trap? Jalen asked. Then we stay with him, she said. Whatever it is, he shouldn't face it alone. Jalen exhaled, then nodded. We land, but only for a few minutes. The craft descended slowly, kicking up dust and light as it touched down near the monolith. As the hatch opened, heat and wind rushed in. But Enu stepped forward without hesitation. They followed him, stepping onto the cracked earth. The monolith pulsed once, then split open with a deep grinding sound. Inside was darkness, but not empty. It was thick like liquid shadow. Enu stepped in. Layna followed, every muscle screaming in fear. Jalen came last. Weapon drawn. Inside, the walls lit up with a soft blue glow, revealing a long hallway lined with carvings, images of humans, stars, battles, and strange glowing children reaching toward ancient machines. Layna stared at the carvings. These are the first synchrons? Looks like it, Jalen said. At the end of the hall, a small chamber opened. Inside was a single object floating. A cube. Dark, smooth, humming with silent power. Enu reached out. It's a seed. Layna's heart pounded. A seed of what? Enu looked up at her, then at Jalen. Hope. As soon as he touched it, the entire chamber lit up. Light exploded from the cube and poured into the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Outside, the ground shook. Again, this time not from collapse, but from awakening. The hunters above took a step back. Layna could feel it in her bones. Something was shifting. Not just in the world, but in history. Jalen stared in disbelief. He just activated a relay. What's that? A beacon, he said slowly. But not just a signal. It's a call to arms. To the old tech. To the old protectors. To anyone who still remembers. Layna's voice was barely a whisper. What did we just start? Outside, the sands lit with lines of blue. Old ruins stirred. Machines hummed beneath the surface. And in the dark sky above, something responded. The awakening above the sky, above the broken desert. The clouds parted, but not from wind, not from weather. Something vast moved through them, silent and cold. It cast no shadow, but every living thing below felt its presence. Birds fled. Predators froze. Even the hunters turned their faces upward. And stopped. Jalen stood at the edge of the monolith, his eyes locked on the sky. They answered. Layna stepped beside him, holding Inu's hand. The boy's skin glowed faintly now, just like the old tech. The cube still hovered behind them, pulsing like a heart. Who answered? She asked. Jalen swallowed hard. Them. From the clouds above, a shape emerged, impossibly large, gliding without sound. Not a ship, not exactly. It looked like something between a star and a fortress, its hull smooth and curved like bone, covered in lights that shifted like constellations. It didn't move like a machine. It moved like it was alive. Inu's voice was quiet but sure. It's the sentinel. What is that? Layna whispered. The first of the Sky Guard, Jalen said. They were made by the earliest synchron, but they vanished before the fall. Some said they went to the edge of the galaxy. Others said they were destroyed. Then how is it here now? Inu looked up at the sentinel with awe in his eyes. It was waiting. As the sentinel hovered above them, blue light spilled from its underside, not as a weapon, but as an invitation. A narrow beam stretched down, touching the monolith's edge. Jalen checked the scanners on his wrist. No weapons locked. Number. Aggression. It's reading us, watching. Inu stepped forward, his hand reaching into the beam. It wrapped around him gently, lifting him just an inch off the ground. Layna gasped and moved to pull him back, but Jalen stopped her. No, he said. Let him. The beam shimmered. Then, without warning, a voice filled the air, not from the sky, not from any speaker. It was everywhere at once, ancient, deep, almost gentle. Synchron confirmed. Line restored. Guardian protocol reactivated. Then the voice went. Silent. The light vanished. The sentinel remained in place. UNMOVING.LAYNA rushed to Inu and pulled him close. Are you hurt? He shook his head. It showed me the others. Others? Jalen asked, stepping closer. There are more like me. But they're scattered, hiding, sleeping. They're afraid. Why? Inu looked at him. Because they remember what happened the last time they awakened. Jalen's face darkened. The purge. Layna didn't know the word, but she knew its meaning. It felt heavy. Final. What now? She asked up before anyone could answer. A loud pulse echoed across the desert. The sentinel shifted slightly, turning toward the horizon. Jalen followed its line of sight and cursed dot in the far distance. Black smoke rose. And behind it, movement. Ships that not human. That's a char cruiser, Jalen said. They're not hiding anymore. More ships appeared behind the first. Sharp, insect-like, with jagged wings and red engine flares. They didn't move like machines. They darted through the air like predators. They're scanning, Jalen said. They know the vault was triggered. They'll come for Inu now. Let's run, Layna said, panic rising. We can't, Jalen replied. They'll outrun anything we've got. Even the sentinel won't protect us if it stays still. Then, as if hearing him, the sentinel responded. It moved. The sky rippled as it repositioned itself between the monolith and the incoming ships. Beams of light extended from its sides, forming a massive barrier glowing, humming with power. It's shielding us, Jalen breathed. It's standing guard. Inu stepped closer to the edge, watching the barrier form. They'll test it, he said. They'll try to break through. What do they want? Layna asked. Enu single quotes as answer was quiet, but full of truth. Me. And anyone like me, if they take me, they erase everything. Jalen looked at him. Then we don't let them. Beneath their feet, the monolith vibrated again. The cube lifted higher and began spinning slowly, releasing lines of light that poured into the surrounding desert. Suddenly, the sands shifted. Structures began to rise from beneath the ground towers. Defense pylons, energy conduits long buried. Ancient machines, shaped like walls and wings, groaned as they returned to life. The land around them became something new. A sanctuary. Jalen looked around, stunned. He's activating the defense grid, the old net. This hasn't worked in decades. He's not just activating it, Layna whispered. He's rebuilding it. Inu's hands glowed brighter. His feet barely touched the ground. But just as hope lit their hearts, a deafening boom shook the air. The Shar had fired. A massive red blast struck the sentinel shield and held. The sky flickered. The barrier cracked but held steady. First, warning shot, Jalen muttered. They're testing strength. Another hit followed. Then another. The sky lit up like fire. Inu staggered slightly. He's connected to it, Jalen realized. His energy is part of the grid. Layna held Inu's shoulders. Can he handle it? Inu's lips trembled, but he nodded. I have to. From behind, more machines rose from the earth, giant mechs shaped like wolves and birds, glowing blue with synchron light. They were the last guardians. The final defense. Jalen ran to one and touched its side. It hummed. They still recognize human code. He turned back to Layna. We have to buy time. The others, Inu said, there were more like him. If he calls them, they might wake too. And if they don't? She asked. Jalen looked at the incoming fleet. Then we hold the line with what we have. Another impact. Closer this time. The barrier flickered again. Inu fell to one knee. It's too much, Layna cried, but Jalen knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You don't have to carry it alone. He closed his eyes and the mechs responded. Blue light poured from them into Inu, not draining, but sharing. The pressure lessened. The boy stood again. His voice rang out. We will not be erased. Above, the sentinel pulsed in reply, and across the galaxy, faint echoes stirred. The line they couldn't cross. Sky was no longer blue. Flashes of red and white lit the clouds as the Shar fleet hovered beyond the sentinel shield, their weapons glowing like angry stars. The ground trembled with every impact against the barrier. Still, it held. Barely. Layna stood at the top of the monolith, arms around Inu. His glow had dimmed, but his breathing was steady now. He had done something no one thought possible. He had awakened the shield network, drawn the sentinel, and begun the first ripple of what could become a new beginning. But below, Jalen was preparing for war. He stood beside one of the massive guardian mechs, its shape like a bird forged from old steel and pure will. Energy pulses moved through the machine as it synced with the old human code in his wrist. You ever flown one of these before? Layna called down. Only in Sims. Jalen replied, adjusting a headset. But they never had one since to a live synchron. Will it obey you? It's not me it's listening to, he said, glancing up at Inu. The boy nodded, barely smiling. You can do it. The mech opened its wings, tall as the monolith itself. Two more guardian units activated nearby, one shaped like a long feline beast, another like a serpent made of metal and memory. Each of them sparked with blue light, waking from a sleep older than the exile mark on Layna's shoulder. Then, from the horizon, movement. 3 Shar hunter ships broke from the fleet, diving low. Their forms were sleek, like weapons shaped into animals. They skimmed the sand at incredible speed, aiming straight for the shield line. First wave, Jalen muttered. They're not holding back. He climbed inside the guardian bird. Lights flared. Engines growled. And suddenly, the desert screamed as old Earth tech took flight. The mech launched into the air, wings cutting the storm clouds like knives. Below, the feline mech sprinted into the open, kicking up waves of sand and lightning as it roared to meet the intruders. Layna stepped forward, holding Inu's hand tight. "Is he ready?" "He doesn't have a choice," Inu said softly. "But the Guardian remembers him." Above them, Jalen's mech met the first Shar Hunter midder. They collided with a blast of light and heat that shook the monolith. Metal screeched against metal. One hunter spun away, trailing smoke. The second twisted around and fired a crimson beam just as the feline mech lipped and slashed it from the sky, but the third made it to the barrier. It struck hard. The shield cracked. Layna gasped. "It's weakening." Inu closed his eyes, palms open. "I need more time." "You don't have more," Jalen said, overcomes. "They're already circling again." The sentinel shifted in the clouds, releasing new pulses, beams of stabilizing energy, but even it was slowing. From above, more ships moved into formation. A second wave. Too many. Jalen single quotes S voice returned, urgent. "We can't hold this line with 3 mechs and a glowing kid." Layna looked down at Inu. "What can we do?" Inu didn't speak. Instead, he walked to the edge of the monolith, arms raised. Then he sang. It wasn't a song with words. It was a frequency, a pulse. Something older than language but heavier than silence. Layna heard it in her bones. Jalen felt it in the cockpit. Even the enemy ships paused for a second, beneath the desert floor. Something responded. Machines. Far more than anyone knew. Forgotten guardians, buried beneath sand and rock, stirred. One by one, lights flickered beneath the surface like stars. Waking beneath soil. The voice was spreading, not just across the desert, but across space. In distant systems, children like Inu sat up from sleep, eyes glowing. Their parents screamed. Their governments scrambled. But the pulse kept spreading. It was not violent. It was not a weapon. It was a memory. It whispered. "We are still here." At the monolith, Inu collapsed. Layna caught him. He reached them. She said. Jalen single quotes S voice came again. "He what?" "He called the others," Layna whispered. "The hidden ones. The lost ones." From the ridge to the south, 4 more guardian mechs rose, pulling themselves free from Earth's grasp. Blue veins glowed across their chests. The Shar hesitated. Then the sentinel moved. It lowered itself, pressing close to the barrier line. And for the first time, it spoke with its true voice, not a whisper, not a system alert. A warning. "This world is claimed. You will not cross." But the Shar didn't stop. They fired again. The barrier collapsed. But before the enemy could breach, a second shield formed from the monolith itself, powered not by machines, but by life. The synchron seed Inu had awakened, pulsed once more, and the monolith sent out waves of energy, fusing with the shield. It was no longer just defense. It was declaration. Layna stood with her son, watching as Jalen's bird-form guardian locked blades with a Sharship midder and tore it in half. The serpent guardian wrapped itself around a cruiser and sent a pulse through it that turned it to dust. The feline leapt across dune after dune, faster than missiles, and more were coming. Layna looked at Inu. "Is this the start?" He nodded weakly. "They thought they erased us, but we were only sleeping." Above, the sentinel expanded its wings, releasing a final burst of light into orbit, one that would carry the signal across the galaxy. To every synchron. To every silent machine. To every hidden corner of every world where hope once fell asleep. And somewhere, very far from Navaar, something opened its eyes. When the stars remember the sky was fire, guardian mechs and Sharships clashed above the desert in bursts of light and sound. Some mechs fell crashing into the dunes like wounded giants. Some Shar vessels burned in midder, their metal carcasses screaming through the clouds, but neither side retreated. Not yet. Inside the monolith, Inu lay against Layna's chest, his breath shallow, his hands warm with blue light. His small body shook with every ripple of the synchron signal that still pulsed through the air. Layna wiped dust from his face and whispered, "You've done enough, Inu. Let the machines fight now." But he shook his head. "It's not just about machines," she frowned. "Then what is it about?" Inu opened his eyes slowly. "It's about reminding them." Above, Jalen's guardian bird streaked through the sky, trailing Shar fighters. He twisted through cloud and smoke, dodging blasts, returning fire with pure energy from its wings. Every move was controlled chaos, but his voice over comms was steady. "I can't hold them much longer," he said. "We need something else, something big." "Then look up," Inu whispered. Layna turned her gaze to the heavens and gasped. The sky was opening. Not tearing, not breaking, but unfolding. Like a curtain being pulled back to reveal what had always been there. Ships emerged. Dozens. Then hundreds. But not HHARR. Not warships. ARKS. Sleek and ancient, shaped like memories forged from light. They floated with purpose, not aggression. They bore the old Earth sigil, worn and nearly forgotten. Humans. Not soldiers. Not invaders. Survivors. Each ship carried one thing, a synchron. Some were children, some were old, some were marked. Others were hidden for lifetimes. They had heard Inu's voice, and they had come. The sky flickered with new energy as the synchron fleet positioned itself around Navaar, forming a living shield. On the ground, the Guardian mechs paused. The Shar ships stopped firing. A silence fell, heavy, stretched. Then, from the largest of the arcs, a voice came down, not mechanical, not processed. A voice filled with memory and mourning. "To the Shar, you failed. We live. We remember. We return." And then the arcs opened fire, but not with weapons. With light. Pure synchron energy poured from them like rivers, engulfing the sky in white and gold. It washed over the Shar ships, not destroying, but undoing them. Their systems, built to erase memory, couldn't survive being remembered. One by one, the Shar vessels shut down, their engines flickering, their weapons falling silent. They dropped from the sky not as fireballs, but as cold, dead metal. The fleet broke. The remaining Shar vanished, retreating behind the stars, their silence louder than any scream on the surface. The sentinel slowly lowered itself to the desert floor. The wind had stilled. The sky cleared. The battle was over. Jalen's mech landed beside the monolith, its wings folding gently. The cockpit opened, and he stepped out, bruised, sweaty, but alive. He ran to Layna and knelt beside Inu. "He did it," Jalen said, awe in his voice. "He changed everything." Layna nodded, holding her son close. "No one will ever call him an exile again." From the edge of the battlefield, the synchron fleet began to descend, ships finding room to land, people emerging slowly, cautious, quiet. Many had never been seen by the galaxy before. Most had only lived in hiding. One woman stepped forward, tall, gray-haired, her face lined with age and time. She wore the robes of an old Earth synchron priestess. "Is this the boy who called us?" she asked. Layna rose. "His name is Inu." And yes, it was him. The woman knelt before the child and bowed her head. "Then let all here witness it," she said. "The synchron line is not broken, it is reborn." Other voices echoed around them, some in old human tongue, some in galactic common, but all saying the same thing: "We remember." Jalen stepped forward. "What happens now?" The priestess looked up. "We rebuild, not just the network, not just the machines. Us, the lost, the scattered, the exiled." She turned to Layna. Your people cast you out for kindness, for showing mercy to a stranger. Yes, Layna said, voice shaking. They did. Then let it be known, the woman declared, that mercy saved the galaxy. The wind rose again, warm now, carrying the scent of something new, growth, change. And far off, beyond the mountains, Layna saw fires being lit, signals, other tribes, other cities. They had seen the sky too, a shield, the light. The fall of the hunters. The world had changed. In the days that followed, the monolith became a place of pilgrimage. Humans and non-humans came together to hear the story of the child, who sang the stars awake. They brought food, stories, machines. Even members of Layna's own clan, those who had once turned away, came to ask forgiveness. Not all were accepted, but some were, and that was enough. The sentinel remained above the monolith, watching silently. It never left again. It had chosen its place. As for Inu, he never again glowed the same way. The light faded from his skin, but it didn't leave. It settled deep inside him, like a flame waiting for another winter. And Jalen? He stayed, not as a fighter anymore, but as a guardian of the boy, of the land, of the truth. One night, as the twin moons rose, Layna stood at the edge of the canyon, Inu asleep in her arms. Jalen stepped beside her. Think he knows what he did? He asked. Not yet, she said, but one day he will. You proud of him? She smiled through tears. I was proud of him before the galaxy ever heard his name. Jalen nodded, then looked at the stars. They forgot us, he whispered, but not anymore. And above them, stars shimmered a little brighter. As if they remembered too.